Alright, gonna do more dry hard dead eucalyptus tomorrow, and the best thing for that is 404 pitch chain, bigger chain. So I gotta pull my clutch off on my old 395 XP, and the way I do that, it's the easiest way is if you have a 1/2 inch drive impact gun and a 3/4 inch socket, you just bop, knock that loose. But I don't have one here at home, so what I do is I put a piece of rope inside the cylinder here. But there's a caution: when you do that, you're using it as a piston stop so you can crank that nut loose. But you want to look in the exhaust or in the spark plug hole and pull the piston up with the with the starter's cord. Excuse me. Watch in there and wait until the piston comes up and covers the exhaust port, and then put your rope in and go ahead and pull it until the piston comes up and it hits that rope and stops. Because if the rope gets in the exhaust port and you pull it up or you crank on it, it'll cut the rope and pinch the rope in between the piston and the cylinder wall, and that's no good. People talk a lot about bar maintenance and whether or not to grease the sprocket tip. You're better off just letting the oil from the bar from the saw run down the bar groove and oil your sprocket tip, because the grease gets in there and it dries up and it doesn't let more lube in. But what you should be doing is greasing your clutch bearing here. Most saws have a hole here that leads to that hole there, so you can use a little grease gun, little push grease gun, needle gun to put grease in there. But I like to take it off and clean the extra grease out every once in a while anyway, and I got to do it whenever I switch from 3/8 to 404. I just had my 42-inch bar on this saw with 3/8 square skip, because I had a big tree to do and I wanted to make sure the bar was going to reach all the way through the tree to fell, and I wanted to be able to stand on the tension side of the tree and the safe side and not on the compression side or something like that. And so I wanted the 42-inch bar, and I also had my full wrap handle on. But tomorrow I know I'm going to be cutting stuff that's going to dull chains fast, and so the setup I used for that, I took the full wrap off so I can get at the bar nuts easy, because the full wrap handle gets in the way right here. And I have like a little impact driver, and then another one that has a screwdriver on it, and I use that for like what I call NASCAR chain changes, where I just use the rattle gun, take the nuts off, and back the adjuster screw off, and then use the same thing to put it back together, and I can swap chains out pretty fast. So I'll probably go through several chains tomorrow, and I may even bring my my round grinder out with me out to the shop where I'm going to be cutting. But anyway, just some tips and hints and info there. Actually, you know what? I have a question. This is what's called an external clutch, because it goes on out here. Later model saws generally have an internal clutch that fits into the body of the saw. They're easier to change chains on. They're quick and easier to change rims on. You don't have to do all this rigmarole, but the external is more durable and sheds heat better instead of having the heat of the clutch inside the saw. But something weird that I've noticed is on my Steel 461, it has the same internal clutch as my Johnson Red and Husqvarna is the same size, like 372, 2166, so on and so forth. But and actually my Johnson Red 2188, which is a Husky 390, I have trouble with my Huskies. They get dust from that dry hard eucalyptus that I cut. They get into this bearing here and bind up the clutch, and it wants to spin at an idle all the time, and so the saw stalls because it's bound up and it's trying to turn all the time. And I'll clean it out, put oil in it because I'm out in the field, and it'll be good for a while, and then it'll lock up again. And so I'll take it apart, clean it, put grease in there, and it stays a little longer, but it still locks up again. But my Steel 461 doesn't do it, even though it looks like they have the same clutches on them. So go figure on that one. If anybody's got any ideas, let me know. One thing I noticed, some of the clutch drums have holes in them and some don't, and it doesn't seem to make any difference.